La sostenibilità ci riguarda da vicino.
Forse
Sì, lo teniamo acceso. Va bene?
acceso.
Appunto, stiamo attenti.
Sì, vai, vieni a prendere il regia.
Sicuro? Perché qua rimarrà chiuso.
E vanno chiusi, allora mettiamoli qua.
Mi raccomando, sempre per mettere per favore.
Ma non è meglio chiudere. Ah, sì. Ah, di là. Ah, ok.
Sì, capito.
La sostenibilità ci riguarda da vicino, molto da vicino. La nostra indifferenza ha un prezzo. Gli obiettivi dell'Agenda 2030 sono l'unica strada possibile. Siamo in tanti ad impegnarci. Partecipa al Festival dello Sviluppo Sostenibile.
Buongiorno.
Good morning.
Quando è che abbiamo smesso di pensare
When did
che il
we
futuro
stop thinking
fosse una
that
cosa
the
bella,
future
un luogo dove
would be
andare, un
something
obiettivo per cui
beautiful, an
battersi, per cui
objective for which
impegnarsi,
to fight for,
qualcosa
to
da
commit
sognare,
for,
qualcosa da
something to
conquistare?
mark, something to
Quando è che
vanquish?
abbiamo messo il
When
passato al centro delle nostre
did we
riflessioni,
focus
come
on
era
the
bello
past,
prima?
looking
Quando è che abbiamo
at
smesso di
what
ascoltare i
was
giovani?
nice
Non di
in the
parlare di
past?
giovani,
When
ma
did
di
we
ascoltarli, di farli parte di
listening
questa discussione,
to
di
our
questa
younger
conversazione?
generation? When did
Oggi
we stop
parte da
having them
Venezia
involved? Well,
un grande
today
progetto
we are
aperto,
now
inclusivo,
launching a new
per rimettere il
inclusive
futuro
project from
al
Venice so
centro
as
del
to
dibattito.
focus
Guardate
on
questo
the
video.
future back again. Please, let's have a look at the video together.
Buongiorno di nuovo, allora io mi chiamo
Good
Riccardo
morning
Luna,
again. My name is
faccio il
Riccardo
giornalista
Luna. I am a
oramai da tanti
member of the
anni,
press and has
ma
been
per
for a
insieme al
number of
giornalista
years.
sono
And
credo un innovatore, un
not only am
appassionato, un
I a journalist, but also
sognatore.
a dreamer,
Faccio eventi da
a
tanti
passionate
anni, faccio
man. I've
eventi che sono
been
diversi dagli
organizing
altri. Un
events
evento
for
con
many
tanti
years.
ragazzi in sala è un
Well,
evento
whenever
che ci
we
porta
hold events
un'altra
with many
carica
young
di emozioni e di
people,
responsabilità. Oggi
obviously it's
ragazzi
a
vi
great
chiedo di alzarvi in
responsibility for
piedi,
us.
l'applauso è
I'd
per voi,
like
l'evento è per
to
voi. Per voi che ci seguite, in
invite
piedi.
all our young members of the audience to stand up. This meeting is for
Siamo
you.
qui.
You are our target.
Grazie. Siamo qui,
And
salutiamo anche
we are
quelli che ci
putting our
seguono in
hands together for
streaming
you,
sulla
so we are
pagina
like
Facebook e sul
also
sito di
to
ANSA, su
welcome
quella
those
di
who are
Radio
following
Radicale,
us
sulla Rai per il
streaming
Sociale.
on Radio
Siamo qui nella
Radicale,
prima
Radio
parte,
per il
ragazzi,
Sociale,
parleremo un po'
and
di futuro con
we
quelli
shall
che
talk
di
about the
futuro se ne
future with
occupano.
those who
Nella seconda
actually
parte parleremo con
deal
8
with the
ragazzi
future.
come
Later on,
voi,
we're going
che il
to
futuro
listen
lo
from
stanno
8
scoprendo.
young
Vi promettiamo
people
2
who
ore
are developing
non
the future. So
noiose, ci
you're
proveremo
going
e
to
speriamo di
have 2
lasciarvi
years
con
where
ispirazione.
you won't
Cominciamo
be
intanto dal
bored at
posto
all.
dove
Let's
siamo.
start from
Siamo
the
in uno
place
dei
where
tanti
we are
palazzi
now. We are in
straordinari
one
di
of the
Venezia,
extraordinary
di
buildings in the city of
procuratia,
Venice,
la
the
padrona di casa,
Procuratia.
Alexia Boro,
Alexia
della Fondazione
Boro
di Mazza
is
Spinetta.
our
Alexia.
host, and we'd like to give her the floor straight away. Alexia, over to you.
Ciao, benvenuta. Anzi,
Welcome.
benvenuta, siamo noi benvenuti a casa tua. Quindi
Actually, it is you welcoming us. I apologize for my voice. Unfortunately, the mic is not on. We put our hands together for our young generation. This space is called Procuratie Vecchie, and this has been opened only a few years ago, after many years of restoration carried out by David Chipperfield, a British architect. This building dates back to the 1700s, so it is a very ancient building that has been restored so as to have a place for the whole community. This is meant to be a space for inclusion, so as to design the future together.
Parte oggi, è già iniziato.
As for us,
Noi
the future
siamo
is
la
starting up
casa
today.
di
This
The Human
is the
Safety
home
Net,
of the Human Safety
una
Net,
fondazione di Generali
which is
che
a
nel mondo si
foundation by
occupa
Generali,
di sostenere
which
in
is
un
dealing
percorso
worldwide
di
to
cambiamento,
support
di
a process
trasformazione
of a change
le
and
persone più
transformation
vulnerabili.
worldwide, as
Abbiamo
with a
scelto di
specific eye
occuparci di
for the most
famiglie con
vulnerable. We
bambini
decided to
piccoli
focus
fino a
on
6 anni e di
families with small
rifugiati.
children and
Quindi in
refugees
25
alike.
paesi del mondo
So
con
we
oltre
have been
80
acting
ONG
in
facciamo dei
25 countries world over
molto
with over
concreti
8
per dare a
GDOs,
queste
and
persone
we are
degli
financing
strumenti che
important
possano
tangible
usare
project so as to empower these people so that they can change their lives. And it is together that we wish to have this transformation. We are providing all these people with tools to handle the development of early childhood, parenthood, the development of startups with the refugees, and as a matter of fact, over 650 have already been launched of such startups, because in the case of vulnerable situations, what is important is to try and stop the conditions whereby things repeat. Science has proved that if you come from a vulnerable environment, you are exposed to a high risk to basically fall in the same vulnerability again. So basically, in order for children coming from vulnerable families not to live in a situation of vulnerability, to enjoy rather a better future, we have to act today. And this is why we are extremely pleased to play host to this event today. I'm very, very enthusiastic about this, your motto, Ci sei dentro, which means we're in. And as we always say, the human safety arts of change starts with us. And each of us should contribute to this change. So thank you very much again for being here. You're all kindly invited to go see the whole of the home of the Human Safety Net. So visit the building, visit our space. There are a number of important activities and interactive exhibition covering our strengths. And to conclude, I'd like now to say that during this process of change, during this process of transformation leading to the future, we should never forget certain strengths such as kindness, empathy, active listening, teamwork, humanistic leadership, because we fully believe that these are the tools to develop bridges rather than walls. Thank you very much. Thank you to Alexa. Thank you to the Procuratia. You live in Venice, and you are really fully submerged into antiquity and beauty. I come from Rome, and this is very typical with people in Rome. There was Carlo Pagnoli, who is here, said that Venice is the most ancient city of the future. Then this has become one of the mottos of Venice, and we are very pleased now that it is Venice playing host to this meeting. And I'd like to give the floor now to Professor Carlo Carraro.
Grazie, buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning to you all and welcome. I'm only going to use up 1 minute because I'm sure that there is much more food for thought which is going to provide you with following. So I'm here just to welcome you on behalf of the President of the Venice University, Professor Lipiello, who has asked me to come here, welcome you. And Venice, actually, it would be very nice should Venice be the most ancient city of the future. Unfortunately, this is not the case. There are those who are trying to make it so, to make it happen, as a number of institutions of this city that has turned this into their objective, the objective of their work. We'll see. It is not so at the moment. I believe that this initiative, Iniziativa Futuro, Ecosistema Futuro, is very much connected to what we are doing when it comes to climate change, and there are many institutions and research bodies that are located in Venice. You know, it is very easy to talk climate change in a city which is so vulnerable and which is recognized and acknowledged by the world over as one of the most visible potential victim of this and of this climate change. And yet we also tried and found solutions. Indeed, the mobile system called MOSE has actually found a solution to the problem of high water. The Ca' Foscari University is going to be a partner of Ecosistema Futuro. It is a founding member of this institution. Enrico Giovannini and others are going to cover this, but we are going to be part of this because we believe that this is the right approach. This is the right way to look at all the research work which is carried out and all the educational work that we carried out within the Venice University with a very interdisciplinary approach, contributing different backgrounds and points of view, because we can never talk about the future of climate, we can never talk about geopolitics or the future of AI unless we combine all this knowledge together, developing a scenario, putting together a scenario guiding political decisions and business decisions of the key players in this country. So Ca' Foscari, the Venice University, is fully on this project, and we would like to wish the best success to this process. We are going to support it for sure. Thank you, Professor Carraro. There are two people that over the past 2 weeks have been covering the country. One is Lorenzo Giovanotti, who's singing at the Pala Giove, and the other one is Enrico Giovannini, the scientific director of the Italian Alliance for Sustainable Development.
Allora, il progetto Ecosistema Futuro parte.
The project Ecosistema Futuro is now being launched. I believe that today you're going to be in Bologna with the Cardinal Zuppi talking about geopolitics, and tomorrow you're going to be in Turin. So you are again traveling across the city, and all the events of this festival are for free. We've been talking about the future for many years, and there has been this long-awaited desire to start an association focused on Italy. The Italian Alliance for Sustainable Development has started with the idea of Agenda 2030, so it started off in 2016, and it is looking ahead at the future, of course. And of course, we cannot recommend a sustainable future from the economic and social and environmental perspectives. By the way, is there somebody amongst you that joined the Fridays for Future movement over the past few years? Well, Carlotta apparently, but she's going to come on stage later on, because probably you haven't experienced quite an extraordinary experience of the generation that came just before you, the Fridays for Future, and here again the word future, the idea of a future that has to be built and developed and designed, otherwise it won't be as we wish it to be. So this has been an idea that has been with us for many years. It is thanks to Riccardo Lunga, Professor Carraro, and many members of the scientific committee that made this happen. Also, we'd like to thank, by the way, all the companies supporting us. I very much like Pandoro, but I can't think that this country can go on talking about Pandoro forever, which is a Christmas cake typical for Italy. We cannot just talk about it. We have to think about the future. We have to design the future, to imagine the future. Perhaps you know that there is no good wind for the sailor who doesn't know where he's heading to. And Guicciardini in the 14th century said that Italians, and Italy hadn't been established as yet, but Guicciardini said that we would be only happy if there was food on our tables. So irrespective of the world leaders, Italians should get just used to find something on the table, something to eat. Well, this is not the way forward. This is absolutely not the way forward. Businesses are fully on this, as are the institutions that are trying to develop and design the future. Well, in our Italian constitution 3 years ago, a new piece of innovation has been included, indeed, as part of our communication, because again, our association, the Italian Alliance for the Sustainable Development, in 2022 introduced the idea that it is up to the Republic of Italy, not just the state, to safeguard the environment, ecosystems, as well as biodiversity, also in the interest of future generations. And this is the exact wording. So the future generation has been included in the Italian constitution for the first time with a law adopted in 2022. This is basically our project. What do you think that we intend to do? How would you explain it? Well, our future is there to help the country to establish the future, to create the future, to design the future. So it has to do with the world of research, as Professor Carraro just said, identifying potential futures in the environment, for example, of economy, medicine, because, of course, not all potential futures are desirable. You know, just think, for example, about what we are hearing about AI. So research is key, as well as education. UNESCO, the International Organization of the United Nations dealing with education, set up an agenda so as to educate the children to the future. The Italian Alliance for Sustainable Development has talked about sustainability in all university, and this is what we intend to do with future literacy. That is, we want to be able to think about the future and think about the future with a positive attitude. Well, as far as dissemination goes, you know that we are in touch with the Italian broadcasting company RAI, and as well as many other subjects that have programs dealing with the future, usually at 2 o'clock in the morning when everybody is asleep, so they don't have an incredible impact on the country. But we are thinking to set up a museum of futures in the plural, please note, or perhaps a network of museums dealing with the futures. And last but not least, we're also very much focused on empowerment and commitment. How can young people be invited to get on board? Well, the project is starting off today. There's a new website that was launched, Ecosistema Futuro.it, which is a website that you're all kindly invited to visit and to disseminate as well, because after having thought at length about this project, the project is actually kicking off now, and we need your help. There are schools being represented, and we'd like to experiment in your schools the subject of future literacy, to try and understand how children can be taught to think about the future, to design the future. Other initiatives shall be launched in the future, and I apologize for this play on words. I can't but highlight what happened on Thursday last. Important journalists missed the news altogether. On Thursday last, the Italian Senate adopted a legislation that is now being monitored on the Parliament, being lobbied by our association, with Article number 4 talking about the intergenerational assessment, impact assessment of future generations. So whenever a bill is discussed, the impact on future generations should be always monitored, as well as what is the impact on generations. Well, paragraph number 1 of this law is certainly has been very important. Indeed, in paragraph number 1, we read that the laws of the Republic promote equity amongst generations, so the justice amongst generations. Fully aware of the fact that this hasn't been happening so far. Indeed, our world is not sustainable because previous generations, ours included, has never been focusing and considering future impact. So one of the important process is going to include the possibility to identify practices for our government so that the mistakes of the past shan't be repeated again. So obviously we need first the lower chamber to approve this, and then it'll take perhaps 6 months to have the decree approved, but perhaps by the end of the year this change is going to take place. So you have referred to the partners in the project. The Italian Alliance of Sustainable Development has already other international partners. We also have established a dialogue with the United Nations, and I think that we can hear the video of Guy Ryder, the Under-Secretary General of the United Nations for Policy. Well, a number of years ago, the UN voted at the General Assembly with the negative vote of Russia and other controlled countries, and with the abstention of China and other countries controlled by China, but with the majority of all the other countries, well, has cast a vote on the Pact for the Future, which is the idea that government should do exactly what we have been saying about the Italian government so far. Indeed, for the first time, the Declaration on Future Generation was adopted, which basically makes it mandatory for all governments, the Italian government included, to do exactly what we've been saying so far, i.e. introducing the culture for the future, making decisions on new laws, considering the impact on the future, and so on and so forth. The Under-Secretary General of the United Nations for Policy, Guy Ryder, who followed the whole process, is explaining why this is so important. So what he's saying is that at the United Nations, perhaps you are bored about listening about the United Nations, but you know, it is the best thing that was invented in the whole history of humanity, despite all the imperfections. And this declaration on the Pact for the Future, as you write in the Gospel, is a milestone. If you want to look at the future, you can actually rely on this stone to build this future. Otherwise, you're going to stumble and fall. So Guy Ryder's video is going to be launched now, and we'll see again in 2 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I regret that I cannot be with you in person at this year's Future Day, but I'm honoured to contribute this message to the launch of the initiative Ecosistema Futuro. I wholeheartely welcome this initiative, as it aims to place the creation of a better future at the forefront of every political, economic, and cultural debate. An initiative is particularly significant as it draws inspiration from the Pact for the Future, adopted last September by the General Assembly of the United Nations at the Summit of the Future. Now, the Pact for the Future is one of the most wide-ranging international agreements of recent years. In it, member states acknowledge their responsibility to protect the needs and the interests of both present and of future generations, and they recommit not only to accelerating work towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, but also to striving for a world that is peaceful, just, inclusive, sustainable and prosperous, a world in which well-being, dignity and a healthy planet are assured for all humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in United Nations history, member states have also adopted a declaration on future generations. And this declaration underscores the international community's determination to safeguard the future. It acknowledges the opportunities, the challenges and the risks faced by present generations and the implications of projected global demographic trends. It recognises that if we do not change our current path, future generations will inherit a world plagued by poverty, hunger, discrimination and inequality, including gender inequality. And the Declaration prioritises urgent action to address environmental challenges and to implement measures to reduce disaster risk and to build resilience, reverse the degradation of ecosystems, and to ensure a healthy and sustainable environment. And the Declaration makes it clear that both privilege and poverty can be transmitted across generations. And it emphasises that the work to secure an equitable future must begin now. Above all, the Declaration on Future Generations outlines actions to safeguard the interests of future generations by leveraging science, data, statistics, strategic foresight, and the use of new technologies. And at the United Nations, we are fully committed to implementing this Pact for the Future and the Declaration on Future Generations. And we will continue to advocate for long-term thinking at the global level. This commitment is already evident across our work. For example, with the UN 2.0 initiative, the Secretary-General has launched a vision for a modernised UN system, fostering a forward-thinking culture based on innovation, data, digital tools, strategic foresight and behavioural science. And we've also established a dedicated entity, the Futures Lab, which drives futures thinking and strategic foresight in planning, policy making and decision making across all levels of the United Nations and beyond. These initiatives are essential, but to truly make a difference, the Pact for the Future and the Declaration on Future Generations require contributions from all of us, the United Nations, international and regional organisations, member states, the private sector, academia and civil society. And in that context, I commend your action today through Ecosistema Futuro and your determination to place the future at the centre of our political, economic and cultural discourse. It is through a multitude of actions like yours across the world that we can seize the opportunity that present generations have to leave a better future for those to come. Thank you and good luck.
Bene. La voglio soprattutto rassicurare i ragazzi che hanno visto 5-6.
Well, first of all, I would like to reassure the young people. You have seen 5 chairs on stage, and you might think that this is a TikTok time, but we have invited actually 5 people to make some future literacy, future education on future, training about future, so that we can have a horoscope, a scenario about what can happen in 5 different sectors of our lives to understand what will change in our society. And this is the person in charge of Toyota Material Handling in Italy, and this is Leonardo Salcerini. Then we have Rossella Fasola, Public Affairs Director of the Randstad Group, and then Antonio Viscomi, who is the Vice Chairman of Entopan, and Sabrina Bandera, who is the coordinator of the research of the Service for Research, Innovation and Strategy of the National School of Administration, and then Luca Dal Fabbro, who is the CEO of IREN. So, of course, they are not going to make their corporate presentation and to tell us how good their companies are, and not even companies for all of them. But I would like you to provide us with an elevator pitch to tell young people what is about to happen and how they should be prepared and to build a society for the future.
Sì, ci siamo. Ma no, vabbè.
So Toyota is well known for cars only, but of course it is not keen on cars only. But 2 elements are really fascinating within this company. The first thing is that Toyota has decided to have to play a leading role and to commit to the society 5.0 project, which has been launched by the Japanese government. What is it? This is a different project from a conceptual point of view. So Japan experiences 2 major problems, the aging of population and the decrease in the birth rate. So this project was launched 60 years ago in 2019, and the purpose was to help in two different directions. Since the decrease in birth rate means that there is a lack of workforce, it is necessary to increase automation and strengthen AI. And then it is necessary to create both services and products to support life of aging population. Very beautiful project which has nothing to do with cars. How has Toyota decided to implement this project? So they have decided to start a different way of working in a new city where with zero impact, with a very strong automation. So this is the first very beautiful project by Toyota. So we trust hydrogen. So we have developed solutions for cars and other products which have zero impact. But there is also another aspect which I would like to highlight. The Toyota ways are based upon 5 pillars which have nothing to do with production and productivity. The first pillar, which is the most important one, is respect. Respect is one of the 5 pillars. If you go to Japan, you will not find any cigarette, you will not meet any policeman. Why? Because each citizen knows that they must not only respect themselves and the others, but also the environment. I was crossing a pedestrian street. The traffic light was red, nobody was there. On the other side, an old lady stopped me and asked if I hadn't seen that the traffic light was red. I said, well, no car was there, so I crossed the street, and she replied, well, this is a very bad thing, because if a child was there and would have seen you, it would have been a very bad example. So a city ruled, not ruled, but governed by AI. A few years ago, a magazine from the Silicon Valley had a nice cover. Does the future still need us? So I ask it to Rossella Fasola. First of all, please allow me to say that our group, the Randstad group, was really very glad to join this project, because we trust that change is an opportunity. And so we try to actively contribute by research. Why? Because we trust that the working world should be a sustainable one. It is really necessary to allow labor legislation to stop at a certain point. I think that each time that we have a new minister, a new government is settled, the rules in the labor world are changed, and this creates uncertainties for companies. So research is the basis to take into consideration the future of the labor world, of the working world, with some confidence. So Randstad research is looking at the competencies needed in the future. So we look for people, for companies asking for personnel, and we can meet more or less 60% of the requests which we receive. But this percentage is decreasing. Why? Because of the demographic situation.
it is difficult to find people for our companies. And that on the other side, there is also a lack of matching, of competencies matching. So there is a gap between the competencies required and the competencies offered. Why? Because they are impacted by megatrends. Three CEOs from major US companies wrote to their personnel, if your job can be replaced by AI, we shall do that. So what do you think of this? Industrial revolutions meant changes and jobs. What will happen? We think that there is a compensation. Some jobs will disappear. Tell me one. Such translators, for instance, and storage are more and more automated. Let's think of Amazon, for instance. We must also say that some jobs will be replaced by AI, by the machine learning, and by automation. And these are the three main fields which we are studying. But some new jobs will be created. So I think that it will be necessary to avoid rough distinctions. So today, when we go to a supermarket, we were used to meet people who worked part-time to cash, to make our receipts and act as cashiers. Today's cashiers are automatic, and nowadays there are people who must be able to unblock cashiers if they are blocked. May I invite young people to use technology to complete their critical thought. Keep reasoning, please. Thank you. Antonio Visconti, what happens with innovation? What is the acceleration? So I would go on saying human plus machine, everything is changing. Antopan, which was born as an innovator of innovation, is now a think tank for harmonious innovation. What does it mean? Of course, I'm not thinking of consensus. So there are many harmonious companies. It is not disruptive. It is a disruptive approach because we highlight the need that it is go back to the original. The meaning is different. Maybe we should read Genovese works again. So economy is a moral philosophy. Economy is born from man, for human beings, as it is the case for innovation. So Antopan is trying to do that in a difficult Italian region, Calabria, considering the Mediterranean and American. But we would like to provide our own approach to innovation, not the American ones. We are already within the future, but what does a future require? This is something which is consists in the support that we are already providing. So because of building the future and the futures, the possible futures, we must study them, we must understand them, we must integrate our competencies. So should labor be regulated by norms which were conceived in the past centuries? No, know what is the relationship between human beings and machines. They must coexist. So it is necessary to study the future. How do you study them in your National School for Administration? It is a school, but the students are more or less 50 years old, and they work in communes and public administration. So we try to support them in their jobs, because sometimes within the public administration, people are focused on the present, on what should be done and how should be done in the present day, on the present day. So Italy has had 64 different governments, so they have always been focusing on what they had to do. Imagine it is as if you were changing your parents every 1 year, 1.5 year. Maybe someone could be happy. But imagine that you should rethink all your daily life. So how can schools contribute? Well, of course, we can organize courses about future literacy, and I thank Mr. Giovannini for this, among others. So we must do that together, not only, and we are trying to teach that not only to people working in a specific administration, but we organize meetings among people working in different administrations. And thinking of what has just been said, the Italian public administration is made of old people. The average age is the highest in Europe, but many of you will join the public administration in the future. You'll join universities, communes, local administrations, and this will for sure boost innovation and change. Look at Alfaro, who's the chairman of IREN, should be online. So I would like to ask you the most difficult question. What is the future of green transition in Trump's age? Well, I am optimistic. You have always been optimistic. I'm here. Can you hear me? I'm not pessimistic. Green energy transition is before us. The production of photovoltaic energy is less expensive in Italy, less expensive than the energy produced with gas. So I am quite optimistic about energy transition. First of all, because it is a fixed road, and the most important country in the world, that is to say China, proves that it works. They are investing more on green economy than on brown economy, than on gas and coal. Why? Because they want to decarbonize, remove all the pollutants, and they have launched a very serious decarbonization plan in China. And if China is working like this, I'm sure that the rest of the world would do the same. China in this Trumpist era has a more stable leadership, which is agglomerating a lot of consensus in Asia and beyond. So the Americans are losing the moral leadership in the world, and they will have to have a role. They are behind on the production of batteries and photovoltaic panels. So the new investments will be brought to the USA following Trump's policies. So I believe that something will happen, something good will happen. As far as managers are concerned, if I can suggest something, I think that young people should be able to look at the different facets. This world is a rapidly changing one. It is much more disruptive than in the past. Crises are alternating and one follows the other. Think of COVID, the Ukraine war, things of tariffs. So you need to be flexible, you must be holistic, and you must be trained in this sense. I do not agree that Italians, when they say that Italians should study AI, and but they should study Socrates, geopolitics, the organization of global intelligence. They have an overall vision and overview of the world, because the world is governed by visible and invisible forces. There are economic and cultural confrontations, not only wars. You must have a holistic training. I am a chemical engineer, for instance, but I have also a master in international policy. It is important to understand the world and the challenges between and the confrontations between intelligence agencies on materials, what the Houthis are doing in the Suez area. Why are they fighting there? How is there a submarine war on cables? Why is it so important to speak of Pakistan and India? What is happening in Kashmir? What goes from China to Pakistan? Routes control, railway projects in China, all that impacts our own economies. And it is necessary to understand these geopolitical events and Socrates. And it is also important to understand which kind of impact will AI have on cybersecurity. Was the Spanish blackout an IT attack, a cyber attack, or a failure due to climate change? The Financial Times says writes today, that this could have been a cyber attack. It means that economic systems such as Spain could be cancelled by a code, by pushing a button. So the world is connected not only through borders, but also through maritime routes, the economic developments, and cyber connections. And young people must understand these phenomena, and they cannot stay in at a desk in a university, in an Italian university, but they must travel and look around. Thank you. Thank you so much, Luca. And I think that we should have an Instagram moment. We shall make a story with your response. The future is... I go back. The future is respect. The future is change, considered with optimism. The future is being future now. The future is participation, because we need to build it all together. The future is not being afraid. Thank you. Thank you. We now have a video, the video of the first commissioner for the future generation, Sophie Ho, and then we'll be a little bit
sorry that I couldn't be with you in Venice today, but wanted to at least record this short video to congratulate you on the work that you are doing and thank the Italian Sustainable Development Alliance for the invitation. We've followed very closely the work that has been happening with the inclusion of the interests of future generations in the Italian Constitution in 2022. This is a significant breakdown showing that Italy can be a country that puts the interests of future generations at the heart of decision making. And as the first Future Generations Commissioner in the world, I know only too well the importance of doing that, making sure that our decisions taken today are creating a better tomorrow, making sure that our governments are thinking to the long term and testing how their actions are going to affect future generations, younger people, and indeed those yet to be born. And we're really excited to have followed the development of Ecosistema Futuro, and we really like the word ecosystem in the School of International Futures, because what we see in terms of developments around putting future generations into decision making is that that really does take an ecosystem. It takes cross-sectoral work across a range of different policies. Everything is connected to everything. The climate emergency affects our health. Our health relates to how well connected we are as communities. And of course, our health and climate change and the economy also intersect with equity. Thinking about how all of those things in the long term will actually play out is going to be critically important to making sure that we're leaving the world better than we found it for generations yet to come. Also, we need to see those cross-sectoral partners coming together to really put pressure on governments to ensure that they are living up to constitutional changes and actually going further in terms of specific legislation in some cases to act in the interests of future generations. We also need to see political champions coming to the fore to support this agenda, and we need to see changes in the system itself, in the machinery of government, how our government officials are advising politicians on taking decisions for the long term, which is why that word ecosystem is so important. So congratulations on the launch today. We at the School of International Futures are really keen to continue working with you to support this work, to make sure that Italy can be at the vanguard of countries who are implementing the UN Declaration on Future Generations that was passed in September last year. This is not just good for future generations, but if we get this right, this can be good for all generations, and we can ensure that we are all being good ancestors and making sure that we are leaving the world better than we found it.
Bene, grazie. Enrico voleva raccontarci due parole.
Enrico wished to add something.
Gli aprite il microfono? Grazie.
Can you switch on his mic?
Ma ci sentiamo.
Well, Wales has actually established a commissioner for future generation, and Sophie Howe is a such commissioner, whose task is to make sure that the policies should follow this direction, because future generations, of course, do not vote, do not cast their ballot, are not represented by political parties. So in different countries, and this is the most advanced country, a council was established to safeguard the interest of future generations. Should we want this in Italy as well? Well, this is one possibility, as a matter of fact. The report that the International Schools for the Public Establishment has shared, looking at international examples and the future for Italy, has identified this as one possibility. We're now going to give the floor to 8 young people who can be 8 potential commissioners. Should we shortlist them and make them pass this test? Well, so let's talk about information. We often hear that young people do not read the papers. How many of you read the papers? How many of you get informed on the website of a paper or a daily paper? He subscribes to Sole 24 Ore. Wonderful. You're a wonderful panda. You're actually running risk of extinction. Who finds information on the social media? Instagram. How many of you are Instagram followers? Well, somebody more. There's a page on Instagram. This is not daily, with as many as 14 million hits per month, 7 million followers, 250,000. Actually, Bianca Reghini, the founder of this website, she's going to finish up my sentence because I stumbled on my own words. Factanza. Are you familiar with this website? Enrico doesn't know. You're a boomer, Enrico. You're not familiar with Factanza. Bad. This is really bad. Thank you. So 250,000 followers are reading all content. So this is an average figure, 250,000. You know, there are dailies that actually could dream about this large number. You are the founder, right, of Factanza? Yes, actually there are two founders. I was studying at the uni. I was studying economics. And as a matter of fact, I didn't want to do that faculty. It was my parents who wanted that. And together with the we were very close friends, and we noticed that nobody in our circles were reading the papers. So we thought that we could provide information for our young generation. So we wanted to put together the kind of information that we would want at 21. I'd like now to share the pictures that you sent to us. This is something that you already said. So you talked, you were following economics and you didn't want it, but there are times when a parent should tell you should become a lawyer, and so that, well, my parents only wanted me to follow classical studies and economics. I wanted to study arts, and my parents didn't want to. Then my parents wanted me to do economics or engineering. I opted for economics. I wasn't happy about it, but you know, with hindsight, I could say that I was happy because it has been extremely challenging. I've always been a creative person, but you know, doing economics, I was forced some way or the other to think with a more rational approach. So basically, you wanted to solve a problem. You were saying that the information that was circulated wasn't targeted to you as an age bracket, so you thought that it wasn't clear enough, it wasn't accessible enough, it wasn't interesting enough. We always say that young people are not interested, but the fact is there's nobody lends his or her ear to young people, people who are very used to watching our mobiles. You know, when I walk up, when I'm up in the morning, first thing I do is watching my smartphone, and nobody actually was heeding the fact that we are experiencing a completely different world, which is changing rapidly. So our priorities are indeed different. Our requirements are different from previous generation. This is how did you find out? How did you discover this name? This is a snapshot showing how you wanted to have the name. I didn't know it would become Factanza Media. As a matter of fact, you know, we were thinking names, you know, I was thinking LOL or Facts or News or, but the fact is that then you decided for Factanza. So you wanted to start from facts. Facts were most important. Factanza actually is a play on words on Factanza as synonymous with addiction, because at a time when information seems very remote from young people, we wanted to make young people discover what is happening, how beautiful it is to get informed. One idea that you had is to show charts as well. There's something that I really liked, showing how you spend our life. There was a chart showing our lifetime and showing how many time we spend sleeping, or scrolling data, looking at the mobiles, and so on and so forth. So there is those kind of charts make you want to change. We try and make a snapshot of what is happening and have it published on social media. You are now a company, right? A fully fledged company. Well, I have only printed out pictures showing this. Indeed, they understood that this passion could be turned into a job, so we set up the company in 2020. And COVID has been fast-forward driver, indeed, because at the time nobody knew where to find reliable data. Everybody was feeling in a situation of panic. And how about your first premises, your first office? Our first office was my bedroom. This actually, there was a girl that wanted to come to us, and she said, well, I would like to work for you. Can I meet you on your premises? And that was what our premises looked like, because it was my bedroom. The company started off mid-2020, end of the year. How about your parents? Well, my parents could not follow actually what I was doing, didn't get a glimpse about what I was doing. They thought that I was just playing with social media, and they were always complaining that it was only my mobile. Then there was an investment fund that contributed some money, and they said, you know, when you're an investment fund and it enters your company, it is like a wedding, and this is why basically we dressed up as if we were getting married, because we got some financing. How did this happen? Well, you know, even managing that is something that I learned by doing in a very casual way, as it were. So we heard about an investment fund that wanted, it was basically me and Lydia and 13,000 followers when we got the funds from the investment fund, and we got as many as 230,000 euro. When you collected all that money, you thought that you would go holiday, but as a matter of fact, that money was part of our budget, and we started with the first computer, and then we've included people in the team so as to grow. What is the difference in terms of journalism between basically traditional, old, established and traditional journalism and your journalism, that of Factanza or other similar companies? Well, I believe that the objective is exactly the same. I think that what changes is the way we work, in that a journalist should be able to do different things. For example, the editing of videos, rather than, you know, should know about existing platforms. In terms of journalism, you know, what changes is the platform that we use, nothing more than that. Ecosistema Futuro is a website that is being launched today. It is going to tell about the future. Is there a piece of recommendation that you'd like to share to Ecosistema Futuro? You got as many as 1 million followers. How could you do that? Well, I believe that what is important is to lend your ear to people. You have basically to have content developed by people. If there is somebody in their 50s developing content targeted to the 20-year-old, you'll never get to them. I grew up making my own post because I was my target. I knew what I wanted and I supplied that. What is the difference between followers and community? Can you tell us to us as boomers? Well, a community is a combination of people that basically shares values, shares a vision of the world, that has a deeper relationship. Then when you have an event, even a physical event, then they show up and in 1 second you can have as many rooms as possible followed up with people. Then you started the Factanza Awards. That has become a very important moment. It was an opportunity to meet your readers, your followers. Indeed, it was a time when we decided that the information is shared on new channels. We saw that with the Trump's election, and we decided that we should have our followers, our people, and give award for those who actually share information. Then, I always say the startups are not always gala dinner, of course. I'm sure that you went through difficult times. Of course, indeed, we did. What was your difficult time? Well, we have difficult moments every day. You know, the world of information is extremely competitive and complex. Oftentimes, I wonder, why did I start a company into this industry? So on a daily basis, we have difficult times. There were times when we thought we have to pay our salaries for the people who you see here, who work with us, and, you know, paying wages costs money. You're more an editor than chief editor, rather. Well, I am the CEO of Factanza, and I'm following more of the creative aspect of Factanza. How about this picture? Well, this is the team as it is today, not all of the team. There's just one person who's a bit more senior, and he's the one that looks at the bills. How about the elephant in the room? Apparently, social media are bad for our health, as it were, or for the papers. This is what I've been writing myself on the paper. Sometimes they get toxic. What do you think about that? I believe this is quite the case. Indeed, the social media can be harmful, but you cannot but stay there, because even to disseminate information, you have to be present on social media. And I'm sure that many of you might think to leave social media behind, but then you'd think that nobody would think about you anymore. So we could stay on digital media, on social media, knowing full well that whatever you see is filtered, that the information is not always reliable, and then looking at social media for 3 hours a day is toxic. It could be indeed very risky for our mental health. And what do you think could be the future at Fattanza? Well, we'd like to become an important reference for the information industry. We'd like to be identified as a new model in the world of information, doing different things. Also, leaving Instagram. Yes, we left Instagram many times. We had installations in Milan. This is an installation that we developed with car with hail, huge balls of hail. Indeed, in Milan, there had been a hailstorm that had devastated the city, and we wanted to stress the fact that climate change is here. As for facts, you try to stay behind, or to stay away from political parties, indeed, but you talked about inclusion. We do not consider politics as such, but of course, what is very important for us are values. We are very much committed for environmental issues, and civil rights and so on and so forth. When we met over lunch, you were very bold, but how would you see Fattanza? I think it is the media of the future. I think it is the point of reference. We should be hired by you then. How about Zuckerberg? Should Instagram close down? What will you do? Well, this is one of the problems of social media. Indeed, we are in a way in the hands of those that managing social media, because also they can also drive many users away from the social. So on the way, we should diversify our presence on different platforms and are trying to identify who our followers are. There's a question that I'd like to address. We need a commissioner for the future, and there's a podium there, so I would like to stand behind, and Bianca is going to make a statement without you being granted the possibility to ask questions. So here's the statement by Bianca as a potential commissioner for the future.
Eccomi qua. Qua? Ok. Allora, sono abbastanza sicura che
I am quite sure that everyone in this room, in a different way, also in very different contexts, was scared of the future, of what will be, of what will happen. It is quite normal. I fear the future almost every day. Why? Because we live in a rapidly changing world, and we have to bear the weight of climate crisis, wars, and inequalities. We are daily bombed by negative news, and we have the impression that things are worsening, and we are bombed. And when we are on a couch, but also in the bathroom, we are bombed with this news. So we should have understood what our future will be, what we are going to do. But when we are 20, we do not know. So we wonder, what do I know now? I am 20. How can I imagine the future in a context in which we have the impression that this planet is not giving us any future? but the actual situation is different. We are experiencing an extraordinary time. Many things are changing. There are problems, but changes are also improvements sometimes, very often. And I am not the only one who says that. Many different data confirm this. 50 years ago, 42% of the world population lived in a situation of absolute poverty. And nowadays, this rate is 10%. And life expectancy has increased by 4 years, from 73 to 77 years of age. And expectations are that this will increase to 78 years. And this is extraordinary because it means that we live longer. And many more people can access drinkable water, people who couldn't access drinkable water before. So even if negative news are much more noisy than positive news, we must be aware that positive events occur every day. Thousands of people are living a life which they couldn't have even imagined 20 years ago. And why? Because every day many people work to improve things. Scientists, activists, journalists, writers, ordinary people who share their courage, their bravery, and also the confidence, the trust. They are convinced that it is possible to make changes. And moreover, the word is unbelievable. We have just said it with Riccardo. The word allows us to reach hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people with a few clicks on our computers. So this is an unbelievable engine for change. So the word is very complex, and complexity keeps increasing, and very often we feel little when confronted with all the changes that are needed. But if you think that it has always been like this. Changes have always been launched by one person, by one idea, by the bravery to say, well, I can change things. So we do not know what will happen in the future. We know that it will be complex, and we also know that each and everyone can contribute to this change. We can contribute with what we have available, with our own tools, with our own ideas and actions, and also with our fears, because it is quite normal to be afraid. And when it will be difficult, because changing things, it is always difficult. Remember that many other people are changing things with you, and that each one is contributing to this change. So the major mistake we can make as a generation, as individuals, as a society, is to stop when confronted with the complexities of the world, with the weight, the burden of changes. And we must remember that each drop, each one of us can trigger a major change. Thank you. Thank you, Bianca. One thing, I would like to add something to Bianca. You were really brave. You mentioned the statistics in front of Enrico Giovannini. It is a major risk because it's the king of statistics, of figures. So thank you, Bianca, for this.
Allora, quello che accomunerà le 8 storie, la prima l'abbiamo ascoltata, che sono tutti ragazzi.
So all the 8 stories we are going to listen to are stories told by by people in their 20s. But one of those young people we have invited is 19 years old. An exception.
19.
when is your birthday? On the 19th of May. We should have waited for it, actually. Well, you are a commissioner for school. You have founded a movement, Contacto, which aims at changing school. So you are from Rome. I never had a very beautiful relationship with school. I was not a fan of classical classes, but you managed so I found all the pretexts to get the maximum with doing the least I could. So during the pandemic, we had remote classes without meeting my classmates. So I was bored. I didn't feel like attending the classes, and the professors always asked to use computers, phones, and they tried to involve me in as many things as possible. So thanks to the principal and thanks also to events, I was involved in the daily life of the school. I was a representative of students, so I organized all the activities that took place at school. So a few pictures. So this is what we did during our 5 years at school, at high school. We built a pole, and there was no barrier between teachers and the students. So we organized clubs, and teachers and students danced together, TED Talks, and we all spoke together. And the purpose was to enhance students. So when you told that to the principal, what did she say? Well, she said, great. So I proposed an hackathon, and she replied, I do not know what it is, but let's go ahead. So we involved 700 students. We stopped the pedagogical activities for 3 days, and so they tried to propose practical solutions for school. What doesn't work at school, according to you, now that you have just left it? First of all, the programs and the system. I blame the system, actually. You cannot blame students, teachers, and principals, because they cannot do anything. The system is too old, and it does not allow individuals to act in an autonomous manner and create something, because individuals are blocked, because teachers must have their classes with the same methods. So you leave school and you join the university. So you founded Contacto. Contacto was born within Silicon Valley. One of the students is here, and the purpose is to connect people remotely via hackathon. Hackathons are challenges. You have a problem, and you have 24 or 48 hours to provide solutions to the different problems. So COVID arrived, Contacto was offline. These are pictures of what we do. So we try to give opportunities to high school and university students, people who want to leave their comfort zone. So we allow meetings with the policymakers, entrepreneurs, and we try to add some role models who can be inspirational for students, for young people. Young people are the future, but nobody ever says young people are the present. So young people keep leaving schools. Is there any connection? Maybe. School is not the same in different territories. You have some types of schools in northern Italy, some others in southern Italy, and in small cities you have the same problems, and in town centers you have so many opportunities. So people, young people, leave schools because the school systems cannot evolve at the same speed as young people. So the Minister for Education has ever invited you? Have you written to him? Yes, we did write to him. I hope that he will reply, but I shall meet Minister Berlini, the Minister for University, and Minister Valditara, the Minister for Education, next week. Quite interesting. What would you like to tell him, who is quite authoritative, actually? But very recently, he said to the professors, to the teachers, that they shouldn't give too much homework to students, to school students. So during the recent years, we have gone backwards. I do not share any of his choices. I do not share the orientation that he is given to the school, going back to Latin and civic education. But what does it mean, practical? 1 more hours of lesson, teachers have more work, but there is no structure. So students are not given actual tools. So many words, but nothing concrete. This is your podium moment. As the Minister for Education, how do you see yourself in 10 years? Well, he made a break. He has made a break in the end. Well, trying to continue doing what I'm doing. I would like to be the Minister of Education in another country. I will be 29 in 10 years, so I do not expect to be the Minister for Education. I shall not have the competencies needed, actually. But I would like to, always with my bottom-up approach, to inspire more and more students to join this network. How important is it to study what we like? It's life, actually, that's all. I have never appreciated classical learning, but I admit that having knowledges and competencies and share information with other people is essential, is vital. Without education, there is no future, because you are not aware of what is going to happen. So our Minister of Education in 2035 will now let us know his program. I might have already told that. I am 19, I've just left school. I know what it means living in a system which does not listen to you, because I experienced it for 5 years. The system never asks you who you are. A system which asks you to decide who you will be when you are 13, without allowing you the time to understand who you are becoming. A system which speaks of the future but leaves you in the present or in the past, which speaks of orienteering but limits it to a PowerPoint slide. But I believe that the school should be something different, a laboratory for the future, a place where you know yourself before being known, a place where you can explore and make mistakes without fearing being judged. So where you can understand not only what you want to do something, but why you want to do that something. We have met thousands of people from all over Italy, from big cities and small villages, and almost everybody told me I feel lost between the anxiety of void and the inability of doing something. The future, because nobody tell you that the future is made of difficulties, but that you can start again. We need a school which does not prepare us for exams and tests only, but which prepares us to life and which allows us to join knowledge and how to implement it. We need a school that allows us to do things better. School must put critical thought, empathy, and the ability to collaborate at the forefront. So the school must measure what we imagine, not only what we remember. And the school must be aware that we do not have alliances, we do not have dialogue spaces. I do not have all the answers, but I know that this generation needs to be trusted. It is necessary to understand that the community does not separate the school and the world. This is why my question is simple, and it is not addressed only to professors and principals. Are we ready to commit and build a school for the future, a school which does not train us to answer, but to ask better questions? Thank you. Thank you, Eugenio.
Allora, Eugenio, in questo discorso appassionato e bello,
in his passionate speech,
voto,
Eugenio was referring to the anxiety of marks. So this is something which is experienced also by my children. You know, this is the same that one experiences at the time of the elections, but there are always lesser people going to cast their votes, and this is also true for young generations. There is somebody amongst you that is fully committed so that younger generations do vote.
Allora, Florian, benvenuto.
Florian, welcome.
Intanto sgombriamo il campo dal tuo nome, che evidentemente non sei romano.
Of course, you don't come from Rome, Florian and Secco.
Sono di origini albanesi.
I come originally from Albania. Both my parents are from Albania, and this is a wonderful picture with my grandpa. We came here in the 90s as boat people. You know, those pictures have become very famous, and then we stayed on, and we live near Milan here. I'm with my grandpa, and my mom loved my hair, and she would put pins in my hair because she loved my hair, but then unfortunately I had to have them cut. Here we go again. This is another picture. You know, then I went to high school. So you were involved in something that I didn't even know it would exist, i.e. the World Championship of Discussions. Unfortunately, there are very few who are familiar with this, luckily enough, though. There are more getting informed. Basically, a subject is discussed, which could be any subject at all. So, for example, is it important to believe that there's a life after death, and there are those pros and those cons. I started off quite by chance because during my Italian literature classes, my teacher said he liked discussing. Why don't you sit in this event? And then basically I joined this process. We went up to the World Championship where a subject was debated. Where was it held? This was in Zagreb. How is this competition organized? Where there are again two teams, one pro and one con, and in this case the subject being debated is the Silk Road, for example. That is the project that China had launched, could be positive for all. And basically, 30 seconds before the debate, you were chosen and shortlisted for one of the two groups. So you basically you were told whether you should be pro or against. So basically, you could talk in any debate. No, not any debate. Not, that would be too much. You know, what is important here also to listen. Do you think that is something that you learn or you're born with? Well, both is true. As all the different skills and talents, there's something that you're born with that you're interested in further developing. You know, that Obama certainly was very famous at the time. He was my model. Of course, you have an aim at the most important champions. Then, you know, the debate led to the setting up of an institution which is called Debate Italia. The debate is not just to prove that one is right, but I think that the debate is important because you have to organize your thought, you have to listen to what your counterpart is saying, you have to come up with sound arguments, and you also have to think about what is happening on social media. I don't think that is well-organized kind of debate. The advantage was to be at times for, at times against, because then you should also consider the other point of view, and this is something which is not happening on social media. You're only basically trusting yourself. Here you're back to Albania. Of course, Albania is one of the important components of my life, and it is important also as something that basically developed my way of thinking, of looking at political representation. Is that different from vis-à-vis Italy? Well, there is a value that I was born with, traveling often to Albania, being in contact with Albania, is to see a country that is a well-industrialized country such as Italy, and a country that is in a completely different situation. Albania is a country that developed. I was born in 1999, and when I was born, the country was completely different from what it is today. Sometimes I joke that Albania again has grown importantly. So you got to Italy with other boat people. You're now Italian. What do you think about the attitude of our country vis-à-vis migration? You can say what you like. Well, the possibility to get in touch with my relatives, people that travel on those boats, is to look at people, not just the figures. Those people who were on the boat were my parents, my uncles and aunties were my relatives, and I know about the difficulty they've gone through. You know, when you consider people rather than figures, you may understand that it should be dealt with a superficial approach. Now you say that we should vote. Well, this indeed, there's a project that I triggered together with Valentina that you see here in this picture, who's the co-founder of this movement. We realized that young generations, young electors don't cast their votes. And why is it that? Well, because the idea is that they perceive institutions as very remote. They're not informed about institutions. They don't know how they work. They're extremely complex. You know, there's the chamber, the parliament, the senate, and so on and so forth. So we thought that we should go to the schools. So we should visit school-going children and tell them about the working of the our republic. So we should explain what your vote can bring about. So it is important that you should go vote, because things may change as a consequence of your vote. And the vote is something that people has been fighting for. Can you tell the audience why is it important to vote at the forthcoming referenda? Well, it is certainly important. There's also an issue dealing with citizenship. There are new citizens. There are people who are not considered as Italian at the moment, but who are indeed Italian. They are not Italian just for the bureaucracy. I was born in Italy, and I was given a citizenship at 16 because my mother had it then. And as a matter of fact, there's no difference between me and my other schoolmates at the high school.
Esatto. Per quanto riguarda invece
As far as
sono più gli altri 4
the
temi,
other four subjects of the referenda, you know, that had to do about job security. Just think about the world that I'm talking to those who are sitting in all the roles. If you want to start a new profession, you want to get some guarantees. So I think that you should get informed and go and cast your votes. And what is this? Well, this is Ottawa in Canada, and I'm here with Teresa, who's going to be very angry because she has her closed eyes. Alessia and Chiara features in this picture. Y7 is another committee that we set up. What is the Y7? The G7 is engagement groups, that is groups where interest groups ask for information or implement recommendations to the G7. One of such groups have to do with young people, and that is Y7. So the delegation of all the countries members to the G7, and you see all the flags behind, plus the European Union, basically are interested in understanding what the young people really want. And I'd like to stress the fact that we don't talk about youth policies and full stop. We talk about energy, economy, peace, AI, technology. So young people talk about the future, all the subjects, not just something that concerns them as young, basically. And this was held, by the way, last week. Where are you going to be over the next 10 years? Good question. Well, when the questions are asked about the future, you know, what is important is the ecosystem, the place where I'll be living, and I wish I can be in a better place, a place that looks at the future and which is fully inclusive when decisions are made. And when I talk about fully inclusive, I think about also the inclusion of young people. So in this game, basically, you are a minister. Now, I don't want to become a minister at all, so now you have the podium for your statement.
Quante volte avete sentito questa?
How often did you hear the words, we should listen to young people, we should give a say to young people, something that is always featuring in both public and private conversations? Well, there is apparently an enthusiastic interest in lending our ear to young people. Well, lending ear to what we say is not that difficult after all. You know, young people make themselves heard on social media, in different events such as this, so in many different situations. So listen to young people is not enough, because young people should be practically included in a structural way in the decision-making process, leading public policies. And this is something not easy to attain, and this for two sets of reasons. So first, because of demography, and I'm very pleased that the different panels have covered the subject. Young people indeed are declining in number, and they cast their vote ever less. And this is very important because their political weight is declining, so much so that politicians are not interested in lending their ear to young people because young people do not go and cast their votes. So young people look at the politicians as not committed to policies of interest to them and get further and further remote from them and cast their vote ever less. And so they cannot create any impact. Then there is a second set of reasons that has connected to the issue of trust, because the truth is that, especially in Italy, young people are never trusted. So people may listen to us, but when a tangible indication is to be given, that there are very few people that actually give us time and opportunity to contribute. Because usually this has to do with the way power is organized. A living room for young generations is not something neutral. It implies a yielding part of one decision-making process as well as the political power. So basically, politicians should include young people, and this is not just a rhetoric decision, but it is a practical decision. As I was saying earlier on, having junior people and young people on board implies not just have them on board for youth policy, policies. Indeed, they may contribute to any issue. With the people who are talking today are not just young people, but they are experts that are experts. Bianca is an expert in communication. Angelica is an expert on climate. Claudio is an expert in his own field, which is connected to astrophysics, as we're going to listen in a minute. So not only are they expert on important subjects, but on issues that are important to us, such as peace, climate change, and so on and so forth, something which is going to be impactful on our lives. So what I'd like to say to you who are at the summit or the number of organizations, I'd like to ask you not just to listen to us, but to include us so that we can implement, that our decisions, our contributions can be implemented. And as young people, we're not doing all what is in our power to do. Young people, I think, should also look at what we do, look at what we don't do. Sometimes, basically, we only refer to what we say, we only talk amongst us as very privileged citizens with similar degrees. So basically, we can take on risks, but this is not synonymous with participation. You should have diverse people on board. So in order to be better than the decision makers today, we shouldn't fall in the same traps. So what I'd like to say to the young people is that we should leave behind our own world. We should talk with those who do not cast their votes, who do not have a voice, and we should have them involved. We should have them included to try and promote the social inclusion and economic development. Thank you very much. This is what the future has in store for us.
Si dice, e non si dice a caso perché lo dicono le statistiche.
Well, statistics state that there are few graduates in STEM topics and even less women, but happily there are more and more women who work in laboratories to give us a better word. So I shall introduce to you Irene Guerriero, who has joined the Italian Institute for Technology. Welcome, Irene. How are you? Thank you for inviting me. A strong headache last night, stress. I finished the laboratory at 10 o'clock in the evening, the train. What's your job? First of all, you are part of this panel just because you are 29 and, well, almost 29. I'll be 29 in August. I am a researcher and I focus on bio-nanotechnologies, how current anti-cancer therapies can be more efficient, reducing collateral effects. Something very important. So this is not what someone dreams of when you are a child, because you don't even know that it exists. No, when I was very, very young, I wanted to help children to run and so I wanted to be an orthopedic doctor or a trapeze artist. I studied biomedical engineering. So even if my parents are doctors, the worlds are very different. So it was not clear to me when I started my university studies, that I wanted to be a biomedical engineer. So this picture, you are the kid. Yes, I am 1 year old. The lady is my aunt, Anastasia, who passed away a few years ago, and she was a major source of inspiration for me. She passed away when I was in middle school, and I was lucky enough because women in my family are very proactive. My grandmother, for instance, is not the one who cooked for me, but she is the one who quoted Dante for me, who taught me how to write. So women woman in my family has allowed me to think that I could do anything I wanted, even if the world was going in a different sense. So when I go to meet students in schools, young children, I always tell them, describe a researcher, and one young child only, a girl, told me that a researcher could be also a woman, and the others spoke of man, middle-aged models. So it is very important to propose role models to younger generations. So you went to Turin, to the Polytechnic in Turin. So I come from the area around Naples, from Campania, and I wanted to study biomedical engineering at the best. So I wanted to study getting the best possible education to be able to know the most. So my favorite question has always been why? Why do you write with a pen? Why is there ink in a pen? So I ask you, why have you decided to become a researcher? Again, my aunt has inspired me, as my parents. She was a doctor, a nematologist, and after 20 years working with children, she decided to go to the United States and become a researcher. She has conducted global researches for a major pharmaceutical company in the oncological field. So my question was, why are therapies not enough nowadays? So I would like to know what already exists, but what will come after. So there is a beautiful answer that you gave me yesterday about your job. When do we understand that what our job is? At a certain point, I was to be both a diplomat and a journalist. Then at a certain point, I understood that the journalist was the best solution for me. You said to me, I felt happy. Well, I was imagining my master's degree, and I understood that I was keen on research, so I studied therapies for heart regeneration therapies after heart attacks. So I was biking back home, and I was thinking, I was happy. So I was happy because I liked what I was doing, because I was helping other people. So this image of you going back from the laboratory home, biking and singing is beautiful. Singing Battisti and Dalla song. Yes, well, I sing everything. There is a song called by an Italian group called Ask Me Who the Beatles Were. I like it. So what will you do tomorrow? Well, it is quite complicated. We should ask that today, understand the root. Research is essential, is vital. And it dictates what we shall be tomorrow, and we must choose with ethics what we want to happen tomorrow. Is it a male-dominated, a man-dominated sector? I am lucky enough because I work in an institute which promotes inclusion, equal opportunities. So I was not discriminated because I am a woman, but I was introduced with other colleagues. This person does this, and this other does this, and she is beautiful and young. But when a university student is good, is a genius, but a girl, well, Yes. In the past, it was clear a woman studying engineering. Now the comment is not so clear. If you are good and you are a woman, it's simply because you have studied day and night, whereas a boy is a genius. So you focus on what is immensely small. Look, this is my finger with a lab glove with a platform I am working on. This looks like a small square and it is actually a nanostructure if you look at it with an electron microscope. So if you compare it with the hair, it is 100 million smaller. So this is a micro mesh which allows us as fishermen to capture cancers. The green mass is a brain cancer, a glioblastoma. So you told us that you were biking and singing. Are you still so happy and do you still sing? Yes, I am still happy, but I am a little bit tired because I am very glad to be here today because actually speaking with my peers or people who are just a little bit older than I, people do not know what research is. People, researchers play, they do not know what type of life they have because the life of researchers is not a stable life, and then it is a precarious life because we always have short-term working agreements. In Italy, you do not have opportunities and you need to move away, and sometimes we risk to lose brilliant minds, brilliant people, and in this world we want everything immediately, but sometimes something needs time. But you have the time, nonetheless, to disseminate scientific knowledge. When I was, when I decided to go to take engineering at university, my classmates were surprised. No humanities. Well, in Italy there is always a difference between humanities and sciences. But if I ask you who Pascal was, you'd say the philosopher, but it is actually the measurement unit of forces. So it is important to tell that this is a national contest, and I started in Genoa, and then I was able to participate at the national level. In 3 minutes, you need to explain, in the framework of this context, a concept, just because you have understood something only when you can explain it. So what do you think you'll be? Well, I hope I'll be able to be a researcher and also a facilitator, a disseminator. I would like to do things and tell what I do. So you had chosen a very important image. So you have your opportunity to speak from the podium now.
More than meets the eye.
More than meets the eye. This is an installation by Maurizio Nannucci and the Maxi, the Contemporary Art Museum in Rome, very far from science. But this is not the case, actually. As I told you, I am an expert on nanotechnology. Nano means very small, so small that our AI is not enough. You need a magnification to discover the complexity of what is so small. We were educated to trust only what we see, to be anchored on what we see. This is why if I told you that the fabric of umbrellas is covered by nanometric edges, you would not trust me. But this is like this. You simply need to magnify it and you'll see that there is a hidden word, and this word has a strong potential. What is infinitely small can have an infinitely big impact if we dare exploring it. Think of bio-nanotechnologies. This is the meeting point between medicine and nanotechnologies. So we can create small structures that can interact with our body's cells. We can also eradicate the root illnesses. We can block residual cancerous cells and avoid their dissemination. So we need to learn to imagine. I know that we have been told that science means rigor and experiments, but actually science requires imagination, and you need a lot of it, and you need even more imagination to see what does not exist. Beyond the edge, there is an infinite world, and the future is not so far. It is still possible if we decide to invest with ethic, vision, and in a responsible manner. Go beyond what happens, beyond what you see, because discovery starts from there. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Chi è che diceva che l'essenziale è
Who was saying that you cannot see what is essential with your own eyes? Everybody knows that, right? So not only scientific but also literary background. From Valle di Padova, an institution has developed a video game that talks about sustainability through the game. Let's have a look at the video and then we're going to hear from them. The name of the project is GIST.
Ciao ragazzi, io sono Giovanni.
Io Cristian.
E Alice.
Hi, Giovanni, Cristian, and Alice. This is a game called Eco Reboot, which is very interesting and it is also environmental friendly.
Me l'hai un po' chiamato. Questo è un mondo open world.
This is an open world with 4 levels, where the character looks at the Arctic, the ocean, the forest, and the city. Each has an objective that is collecting resources and avoid problems, which is not that simple. So basically, you look at the ocean, where you have to avoid fish and collect waste. So we have to keep our oceans clean. In the Arctic, you have to collect crystals and avoid the thawing of the ice. In the city, as you may see, you have to avoid smog.
Come si muove veloce.
È pieno di smog. Sembra
Very
Padova.
fast. There's a lot of smog. It looks as if it were Padua. There's a lot of smog. Whereas in the forest, you have to collect seeds to plant more trees.
Uscita. Forse è su. Un caduto di nuovo. Questa è appena uscita. Oh, no. E alla fine, come
And in the end, as you may see, there are questions asked, and you have to reply to these questions. You can play with a computer and a mobile, and the link is available for free. And have fun. Thank you.
Bene ragazzi, lo potete scaricare.
So you can download this game.
Alice, Giovanni e Christian sono in
Alice,
sala.
Giovanni, and Christian are amongst us. Should we put our hands together for them?
Bravi ragazzi.
Show up.
Grazie.
Well done.
E in bocca al lupo. Allora, ricominciamo con i nostri ragazzi. Siamo al quinto, al giro di boa.
Now we're going to give the floor to the fifth young person. We heard from Bianca at the beginning, who has started the business. This is a young man of 23 who is trying to develop something that Google failed doing. Think about the ambition. And he's apparently managing. Claudio Piazzali is his name. Over to you.
Ciao Claudio.
Hi, Claudio.
Ho esagerato con la presentazione?
Have I perhaps overdone with my introduction?
È vero, tutto
No, quite true indeed.
Senti, prima Florian ha detto che ti occupi
Florian said that you deal with astrophysics, but you have launched a startup, right? Developing a constellation of stratospheric globes.
Forse devo un po' contestualizzarlo.
Well, perhaps I should add some detail, otherwise you won't understand what I'm doing.
Partiamo dalle basi.
Let's start from the basis. Balloon for birthday party, the one that can float. You know, we should have one. We've tried to see whether we could find a balloon in Venice, but I couldn't find any. Anyway, I believe that you are all familiar with balloons. Balloons usually float because they are filled up with helium or hydrogen, anyway, with gases that are lighter than air. And because of the Archimedes principles, they float, as is true with a boy. A boy can float in the water, and so we float in the atmosphere. Why did we start with this project? Because we realized that there was an important gap, as they say in English, between the services that can be provided by satellites and the services that can be provided by drones. At 20,000-30,000 meters altitude, there's basically a space which is not being used, but floating with balloons that are somewhat more technologically advanced than those at birthday party. You can have good resolutions in terms of observation of the globe and providing services at a much lower price vis-à-vis the price asked for by satellites, having better services than the one that are provided by satellites. So are they air balloon, basically? Well, an air balloon is usually filled up with hot air, and it is used for tourism. Our balloons are filled up with hydrogen or helium. Hydrogen is also flammable. This is a constellation of stratospheric balloons. It's a rendering which is, because obviously you cannot take pictures at that height, but this is what I'm talking about. So you see that these balloons are developed with plastic, with a payload to record visions of the globe. So now you're based in Copenhagen. Let's go back. But where did you start? Well, I was born in Florence. I come from Florence again. I lived in Florence up until I was in high school. Up until 19, I was an athlete. And I was a track and track athlete, and I changed dramatically. So basically, my dream was to have an impact worldwide, and the dream remained unchanged. I'm going to say a few words. Since I was 17, I knew that I wanted to become a businessman in the technology industry. So at 17, when I was still track and trail athlete, I wanted to change life. You have a co-founder, right? How did the idea came to you both? Is this the first startup that you thought about? Well, the idea we conceived was pretty different. Jonathan Palotto is my co-founder. He was 25 now, and you met by means of through Instagram. So social are not just toxic and noxious. I contacted him through the Instagram and decided to do something together. At the time, he had a marketing agency. We started off as a marketing agency, which is a very special startups. And then basically you developed a radical pilot project. How was the idea conceived as we were acting in the marketing industry? Well, he had used a GoPro based on a balloon to develop some innovative marketing campaigns. We had a spot developed for pasta makers, and so we decided to use this just for marketing objectives. But we then understood that there was a greater potential, and we invested all the money that we had made, and we co-founded an aerospace startup. Why are you based in Copenhagen now at the moment? Well, I'm there because when I finished my BA that I did in Florence, I knew for sure that I wanted to start a business, and I wanted to do so, getting also my a master. And in Copenhagen, there was a technology master course where they would help me in my project. My top objective at the time was to combine my efforts at university with those to become a businessman. And as a matter of fact, in Copenhagen, they would help mentoring in the developing market research, developing business models, and so on and so forth. So basically, you had very high objectives. You look very strong because you're an athlete, but how about in terms of skills? Do you think you can make it? Well, I for myself haven't got my final degree. I'm doing so this year. I started my company when I was still as an undergrad student, and for the first time in my life this summer, I shall be working without studying anymore because I will have my degree then. I referred to Google when I was introducing, and there was this Gulun project where they were trying to use a stratospheric balloon to do what Starlink is doing, which is an alternative in terms of fast communications worldwide. So your benchmark basically are Elon Musk and Google. Quite bold as a statement, isn't it? Well, I don't wish to compare with anybody, but I'm certainly being inspired by people that did something important. So the failure of Google taught you something. Of course, Google has indeed developed a lot in terms of technology, especially as a business model. You know, having Google before me in a way helped me in terms of funds and, you know, the possibility to invest a lot of money at an earlier stage, you know, makes it mandatory for you to have important returns. If you don't get returns, we don't raise any more money. The Google people are helping you. The CEO of the Google project actually sits in the board together with my co-founder and myself. How could you raise as much money? Well, we basically told a story. Storytelling is key. Storytelling is really important. I don't think you should. I don't think that it's important to be the best engineers. I think that what is very important is top communication. If you can, when you can persuade people to go towards a certain objective, then you can learn from them. So you can persuade people to become a member of your teams. And then you can also raise money, and that basically leads you to raise as many as 2.5 million. So this is the Mission Control Center at NASA in Houston, which is a bit of a playroom for those who have a passion for space. It is quite an honor to be able to tour around the offices and to the R&D center of NASA, something really special. This is me again at Elon Musk's home in front of the launch site of Starship.
Vabbè, ci sono arrivato con l'aereo e poi con la macchina.
How did you get there? Well, I took a plane and then a car to get there. Did you write to Musk? Well, we are in touch with many aerospace agencies, including SpaceX. There was a time where we were trying to hire a CTO that was a former engineer at CTX, and then the thing didn't succeed because it was too difficult for him to move to Europe, but we got in touch, and he enabled us to go visit the launch site, which is certainly one of the most important technology frontier ever. Before giving me the floor for your statement, there's something that has quite impressed me. You talked about your childhood, saying that I always had love. How important is that? Well, being loved is quite essential. You were talking about the love of your family, your parents, and the context and the situation where I grew up. Well, sometimes I compare myself to being a sailor. A sailor, you know, to go to the ocean, to be able to go to the ocean, to be able to feel safe, knowing that he can go through storms, is being able to have an anchor and a port to go back to. Well, having a family that supported me and who enabled me to start my adventures was indeed one of the most important things, and enabled me to take risks that I wouldn't take otherwise. So this is quite important. This is something that I wish to build with my new family, I hope. So I believe that if you don't have a safe harbor to start from and to go back to, you can never be bold enough and to cross the oceans, especially when there are storms at the horizon. There's something else that hit me in your interviews, but I'd like to stop here. But there's somebody who has asked you what you want to do, and you say to contribute to the development of mankind. And this is quite an important statement, isn't it? Indeed.
È una frase che deriva da un valore che mi
So rather than developing a unicorn, you know, unicorns are just a means, companies are just but a means to have the power, which could be also the political power, to have the power to influence people and bring about change. I believe that we all have to find what is most adjusted to who we are. I believe that my driver is to have a meaning, and to have a meaning implies contributing to the progress of mankind. And I'm doing so with this aerospace startup. In the future, it could be something else, but as long as I go towards that direction, I know that I'm doing something right, especially based on whom I am. So now you have the podium. Go and make your statement. Thank you.
Allora, ciao a tutti.
Hi, everybody. Usually I have no written speech, so here again I only have the bullet points that I want to cover. I want to be very practical in inviting the young people amongst you in a call to action so that you can follow your own path. There's something that I realized as a problem, and I believe that sometimes even adults, when I go speak in companies or in any other context, sometimes I ask them why they do what they're doing, and they often react stating that they just happen to be there, so as if there were a flow event that drove us in a certain situation. And I can understand this because oftentimes we go to school and, you know, children are very young and they don't have clear ideas, but sometimes you go to school not because you decide so, but because, you know, young children should go to school and should be good at school. And then they go through high school and then they go to university. Why university? Because a good boy, once his high school is over, has to go to the university as if it was the cool thing to do. In the university, maybe you can be offered jobs, and so basically you want to have a job as soon as possible and earn money before your mates or your peers. This mechanism is very well understandable, but it prevents you from making clear decisions. Oftentimes people end up doing something which is not something they chose, but it's something that they happen to do following the flow of events. What is essential for me is that right from the beginning, as young people, people should know that they should make decisions, knowing why they're starting something, knowing what they're doing going to go next if they pick one job rather than the other. They should know why. This is very difficult because oftentimes you cannot anticipate the future, so you cannot try and anticipate the future. And I certainly do not know what I'm going to do in 10 years, what company shall I be working in what kind of a framework shall I be working. What I know is the direction that I want to follow. And when I'm talking about direction, I don't think that you should have an objective such as being an engineer or being a CEO. I think that you should be willing to feel energetic. I, for myself, want to contribute to the well-being of mankind. For example, I want to have children feel well. I want to know as many cultures as possible. This is a main direction, and then you can, leave your creativity and fantasy free to identify in which field you want to follow, and you have to choose one, because anytime you have to make a decision to start a new course or to get a new job, you basically have to make your decision and choose what is closer to your direction. You have to understand what this direction is like. Making decisions is certainly not easy. Basically, you also should make decisions and shoulder your risks. You should do so now that you're young, because I think that young people can take risks on their shoulders without a lot of consequences. What about if you fail? What about if you go bankrupt? And then, then who cares? I could go to any other company and I can say, I've raised $2.5 million and I guided my startup, and I can go and look for another job. So I think that you now have the possibility to embark on a new adventure, shouldering responsibility and not paying important consequences for that. Obviously, taking risks is something scary, and Bianca has mentioned that as well before me. And I, for myself, you can develop your own strategy. As for myself, I try to look at life with some irony. I look as if it was a video game. I feel like I'm a character, the main character of my game, and I look at challenges not as problems, but rather as side quests. And everything is interesting because maybe I can get more in terms of experience, and then I can get to the higher level and do something more complex. And this basically changes your approach. So you leave behind anxiety, you look ahead at challenges as if they were entertaining and funny. So the world is certainly not going to become more simple. There are many waves, as when I was referring earlier on to the storms, but you can surf your waves, then you can have fun also surfing the difficulties of life. Thank you. Thank you, Claudio.
Grazie. Grazie.
So this is a startup which needs to make profits, but profits are not the only key. We have different models of companies that say, of course, we need profits, but also something good for other people. So social startups, such as the one we are going to introduce in Italy, there are blood donations are not sufficient, and young people donate less and less. Chiara Schettino has provided us with a solution. 23 years old, so in one word, the solution is called rosso, which means red. Well, I would start by a question. I was wondering, any blood donor here? Look at each other. It is always very nice. Few people, but the percentage is quite high, higher than usual. The average age is quite low here, and the Veneto region is one of the Italian regions where donations are at their highest. When did you start your startup? You were still at school. Well, Rosso was born a little bit later. I have always been keen on social innovation at school. I realized that there was a problem because I had a non-Hodgkin lymphoma. I was an oncological patient,
So I was in a hospital for 1 year. So I was used to receive blood donations. So during the summer, Rome is the city which has to tackle the most of emergencies as far as blood donations are concerned. Nobody knew that I was at the hospital because I have masked everything. It was during the pandemic. We were at high school, so nobody had noticed that my absence. So in 2020, when I made this story, I have been waiting for my blood. Well, here it is. Thank you for your support. Why? Because about 2,000 people had replied, I'm joining you, I shall make this donation. I said, no, it is not, it doesn't work like this, it is a little bit different. So I realized that I didn't know how it worked. I was 18, I had never donated. So these are my Instagram account was not named Rosso yet. I had already launched the startup. We had created an algorithm to pre-diagnose COVID by voice flows. How was it possible to, what could you discover your COVID percentage? Because it was just before the test, it was at the beginning of February. So you had your own passion between entrepreneurship and health. In the previous slide, I have shown that since I was 18, I met by chance people who brought me in connection with the startups world. My father is an entrepreneur, my mother is a teacher. And so I found these connections. So I had a LinkedIn account when I was 12. What? So, and your job title? Well, I was in middle school, so I joined a program at school called Scuola Futuro, Future School. And so I was, well, the talent met the opportunity actually. I met a person who told me that he had a startup in London. We produce a drink. So I went to Silicon Valley when I was 15 and when I was 18. That was my first team, my first startup. We wanted to involve young people in the agricultural world. We were 16, 17 years old. We were in San Francisco. That was our project. And so if we go ahead, the next one, and then Rosso, to digitize the blood donations. Why? Because only 2% of the Italian population donate blood. Patients wait too long, and so it is necessary to support both the networks of volunteers. So volunteers support the network of and the receivers. So last night I have added one slide. So we started in schools and universities. So you were a student at Ca' Foscari, yes, economics in English with Professor Carrara at the H Farm campus. So I was among the first ones. How did I notice that? Well, when I went to the United States a second time, I found someone was having had an H farm backpack, and at a certain point I remembered that I could have attended H farm, so I went to the campus. I wanted to create a startup, and I thought of this problem. H farm has supported me, has funded my hypothesis.
Siamo andati nelle aziende.
And then we visited companies, and we started to involve tens of thousands of employees. We invited them to donate blood and plasma, so also big companies. So you have convinced big companies to mobilize their employees, yes, in a capillary way. Was it easy or difficult? At the beginning, I really bullied them, I bossed them, I stalked them, and then we started working on retail companies, Sephora and Espresso, and Generali was the second company that started working with us, and they were able to involve all their employees. In Italy, it's a huge population, so your impact is unbelievable. In your case, the future is tomorrow.
Le aziende già hanno la piattaforma ormai da qualche mese, sì, no, da un anno, sì, quasi, la utilizzano e lanceremo a tutti, quindi l'obiettivo è davvero ora coinvolgere i giovani in Italia, ma non solo, quindi anche in altri paesi. Più avanti c'è una foto, questo è il mio co-founder Filippo.
Senti, il tuo co-founder quanti anni ha?
18.
18. Cioè, come te lo sei scelto così giovane? Sta a scuola, lo distrai dalla maturità? Che succede?
Ora sta facendo la maturità, però...
Però sì. Tutto il codice di Rosso lo avete sviluppato voi, mi hai detto, la piattaforma...
Sì, questi tra l'altro sono i team leader del team di programmazione, sono tutti a Lucca, perché arrivano dall'Università di Pisa, il team di sviluppatori, tutti giovanissimi. E qui... Quando parlavo di altri paesi, questo è il Wall of Honor di uno degli ospedali più grandi della California. Stiamo espandendo Rosso, stiamo andando in altri paesi, coinvolgendo giovani un po' in tutto il mondo. E il Cedars-Sinai, che è l'ospedale di Beverly Hills, che è anche la struttura che gestirà tutta la parte sanitaria delle Olimpiadi di Los Angeles, è stata super interessata a quello che stiamo facendo perché hanno un problema enorme. Tra l'altro questa foto era circa una settimana prima degli incendi di Los Angeles, dove poi hanno avuto ancora più problemi anche sul tema delle trasfusioni, e poi quindi da qui quindi volevo condividere con voi anche un po' quella che è il nostro futuro, dove stiamo andando, con chi stiamo andando, anche con i pazienti. Io sono stata un ex paziente, non ho mai donato, ahimè. Questa è una foto di una maratona che abbiamo fatto con l'AIL, quindi l'Associazione Italiana Linfomi e Leucemie, ma lavoriamo con i talassemici, facciamo advocacy di emofiliaci, di tantissimi pazienti che ricevono il sangue per vivere. Un paziente talassemico, pensate, soprattutto questo lo dico ai giovani in sala, spesso deve ricevere il sangue almeno una volta ogni 2 settimane, e quindi questo sangue non viene creato in laboratorio, questo ce lo può confermare anche la mia collega, ma viene donato, quindi è fondamentale.
Senti, al di là del successo che tutti auguriamo a Rosso, domani la scarichiamo e ci saranno più donatori. Che cosa ci insegna la tua storia finora?
Beh, sicuramente il fatto non è stato facile andare a lavorare su un tema che riguarda anche me a livello personale, su una storia che è molto forte, perché ovviamente c'è la malattia, che è affrontare una malattia è dura, soprattutto a quell'età. E io poi ho avuto la fortuna, diciamo, di viverlo anche in un contesto giovane. Al Bambino Gesù è un ospedale pediatrico, quindi con altri ragazzi e altri bambini, e in un contesto di amore, perché c'era la mia famiglia, amici, però andare a ripercorrere ogni volta comunque la mia storia per aiutare gli altri è sicuramente da una parte una storia mia personale comunque complicata, perché non è stato facile soprattutto all'inizio, anche perché non era tanto tempo fa, parliamo di 4 anni fa, ma anche una storia di resilienza, se vogliamo dirla così, perché alla fine poi all'inizio c'era una frase, una slide che dalle cose non super positive, dalle stagioni dure nascono anche poi le cose più belle.
Bene, Chiara, al tuo momento podio, vai. Grazie. Ora no? Regia?
Prova.
Ora sì.
Prova? Ok. Viviamo in un'epoca in cui si parla tantissimo di futuro. Intelligenza artificiale, transizione ecologica, crisi demografica e nuove disuguaglianze. Ma io credo che per poter parlare di futuro dobbiamo tornare a chiederci: ma che presente stiamo costruendo? Io ho iniziato a occuparmi di donazioni del sangue non per caso, come vi raccontavo, ma per esperienza personale. Quindi io ho ricevuto il sangue a 18 anni e ho capito concretamente che un gesto così semplice può salvare la vita. Ma ho anche scoperto che poi il sistema attorno, che era un gesto così facile, così immediato, era anche molto fragile, molto poco digitale, spesso soprattutto invisibile alle nuove generazioni. Ed è così poi che è nata Rosso, quindi questa startup sociale ad alto impatto sociale che usa la tecnologia per rendere la donazione più facile, più accessibile e più partecipata. Non stiamo quindi inventando un'azione nuova, stiamo riportando al centro un gesto antico, il dono, con strumenti nuovi. E il futuro che vogliamo non è solo fatto di algoritmi e automazioni, è fatto di cura, di fiducia, di piccoli gesti ripetuti ogni giorno. È un futuro dove le persone contano e dove la tecnologia serve a liberare tempo,
allows us to have resources and availabilities. So we must remember fundamental questions. Who's behind? Who are we listening to? Who and what are we leaving? So this is what building a future means. So a simple gesture such as blood donation should be a shared gesture available to anyone and not only to some pioneers.
La domanda è chi resta indietro, a volte per esempio nel mondo, in Italia anche, ma nel mondo resta indietro.
Sometimes in the world there are those who are left behind, such as the case of migrants that flee from war. Oftentimes they flee also from climate change. A couple of months ago there was a story whose title is From Scampi to UN, the story of a young woman who's the diplomatic advisor on the field of climatic migration. I'm a follower of hers. I'm sure that you're going to be one. Angelica is the person I'm referring to.
Prego.
You have the floor.
Io ho cominciato dunque, mi ha mandato queste foto, io ho cominciato, l'ho montate io al volo.
So I have edited your pictures together and I am starting with this picture because this is a picture that doesn't tell much about what you're doing. It actually tells us only about where you started. You are referred to as the one that traveled from Scampia to the UN. Well, this is my place of peace. This is New York, United States. This is the Pier 36, which after our art show, I discovered it from Scampia to the UN. So I'll tell you something about the past. I grew up in Scampia, a less privileged area and I was considered as the curious girl who should have created problems. As one of the speakers before me, I come from the South. I was born with a lot of curiosity. I always have a question mark and curiosity. I was always asking, what's your name, what's your name? And obviously in an area that unfortunately became very famous for a TV series such as Gomorrah, asking any question, even asking what's your name could be problematic. But as I'm about to tell you, what's your name was the question that in a way led me from Scampia to the UN. It took quite a long path that makes me sing when I ride a bicycle. Even cycling in yoke can be difficult, but this has led me to finding in a situation where I want to know people, to travel a lot, and want to ask to many people who are running away from their country, what's your name? How did you get here then? In your storytelling, the role played by your mom was key. Well, my mom, as a chair in law, and she's been the top example to follow, together with my grandma. My grandma has a disability, and she's always looked at the world from the window. And my father is an architect, and he has a passion for art. The first question which I'm being asked is, why Scampia? My father is not Italian. He fell in love with my mum at the bus stop, so romanticism is very much part and parcel of who we are. He met my mum in Secondigliano bus stop, and my mum, together with her family, was one of those families who had to leave their homes behind because of the earthquake that hit the country in 1980. By the way, yesterday there was a very strong earthquake, and she said, I'm going to drive there by bus, but I wanted to be with you today, and she got here at 11:30. It was quite hectic because, again, of the earthquake. Scampia has been a stroke of luck. If you ask me what I want to do as a grown-up woman, I would dream to live in the city where I was born, Scampia, and to teach at university and live with my family. The country I'm from has given me a lot. It enabled me to get as high as the United Nations with very strong shoulders. How did I get there? It was quite by chance. After the university, you started touring the world, especially in the global south. Well, you know, it was a lot of coincidences. You know, I was sitting next to Francesco Totti yesterday in my very long journey. And in Scampia, I established an association teaching children how they could talk about their traumas by means of art. I meant to be a painter. My parents said, you know, with art, you'll never go into it enough, so you should have a classical education. And, you know, with hindsight, I would like to thank my parents for guiding me, because the choice hasn't been excluding the possibility of loving art. I'm still curious. I studied, and at the same time, I went on working as a painter. And that enabled me to have enough money to go on studying. Chance, obviously, is very important in my life. I got to the UN because the past president of the board of UNICEF discovers on YouTube something that we developed together with children, where I explained that communicating through different forms is important, bypassing words. I received a mail, and I thought it was a joke, that started off as, I sit on the board of UNICEF, I'd like to meet you in the US. And I thought, how come this is going to be a joke? Nobody is going to do that for real. Then I was traveling to Chile, where I joined the project as a volunteer worker, and through my university, Federico II, I studied the new communication techniques that had nothing to do with law. That was my formal study, but it was a way to try and learn to become a disseminator with a very strong background. And I wanted to tell a narrative that could be a reason for inspiration for young people. That the mail that I refer to is sent to me again, and then I replied, and I met a man of some 80 years old with a flag of the UN, and I was wearing a dress with flowers, and then I got to know
quelli che sarebbero stati i percorsi formativi che mi avrebbero effettivamente portata negli Stati Uniti.
About the training that would have led me to get to the US. How did you start talking about the migrant workers? Well, in Scampia, you know, I learned a lot. Just living there taught me a lot also by the simple means of listening. As I was saying, challenges were part and parcel of the way I grew up. On my first school, on my first day of school at 12, I saw a killing. It was 2008 to 2009. There were those very difficult years, and thank God those years are way behind. The only place that I felt safe, which was a school, was in a way tainted. I was looking for a different place in an area where there was the impossibility to travel at night. Then I got in touch with the San Vigilio community that had a migration shelter. I didn't accept I couldn't get in touch with anybody. I wasn't speaking any other language, so I started off painting, and by means of painting, which is another way of communicating despite not being a foreign language, I discovered their stories, hence my interest for migration. As for climate, you know, I live in a very polluted and contaminated area, and this made me feel very alert when you see your peers falling ill with cancer. So I started studying my very complex area, very heavily polluted area, and yet this was in a way paving the way to further curiosity. Over the years, you have studied at length the climatic migration, and you know, people from Naples are very famous because they can invent new jobs, and you know, migrant workers climatic workers, migrants, is something that I discovered just by chance. I thought that there could be some link between climate change and migration. There's no legal status and there's no protection granted to refugees that flee their countries because of climate change. I started off working some 10 years ago in this field because I wanted to make climatic migrants have a say. Based on the data that are provided by the UN agencies, the climate migrant is those who flee the country that is considered as impossible to inhabit. So you could think about climate change or climate crisis rather because of hurricanes, drought. But as a matter of fact, you know, people flee their countries when there are when food and water are not accessible. So when I have no access to food and water, I cannot but leave my country. And this may translate into an international charter to give a saying to those who have no voice, and this is something that is a process which is still underway. Earlier on, we had a girl that said that she's very happy when she leaves the lab. When do you feel very happy? Well, for many years I've lived away from my home, but I remember that my grandma was breaking a smartphone one per month because she was trying to get in touch with me. So over the years, my happy moment is when my grandma showed me influence with the children on the Instagram who taught me about the power of communication. So I am a boomer. I'm happy to be one. But as was said earlier on, social media have become all important to communicate stories and battles. Up until a few years ago, I was not on social media. When a friend of mine insisted more, I started using social media, and my job changed, my work changed.
Now, before I leave you to your statement, I'd like to invite you to tell us how we could look at migrant workers who are often, or migrants who are often experienced as a threat. You've been spending time with them, you talk to them. Is there something that you've learned that you can share with us? Well, I've learned that people can change their mind. I started off dealing with South America, but over time I got in touch with war areas. I decided to go back to my own city. I understood that sometimes people who are very open to knowledge, at times they close up. Sometimes we should try and understand the other people, not looking at our own point of view. There are times of crisis that we experience as schoolgoers, and when we experience a crisis we can understand that we can have different points of view, so lending our ears, listening, being curious, understanding that there can be stories that could become our own stories. Well, I have experienced the story of the first climatic migrant I have met as my own, and I got it wrong in looking at it through my own personal perspective. But the important moment I experienced was when I realized that that story is something that I could have shared in other fora and that required a follow-up. Thank you. Over to the podium for your statement.
Come ti chiami?
What's your name? I started off my presentation asking this question, and I'd like to close on that. I was 18 when I was involved at the first dinner offered to the homeless, and to the migrant who was sitting next to me, I asked, "What's your name?" and he starts crying. Then I thought I had said something wrong, perhaps my accent was too strong, but as a matter of fact, he said that over the past 3 years, nobody had asked what was his name, and I understood that something, small gestures, can actually make the difference. A decade has elapsed from then, and Simon, this was his name, has changed his life. Thanks to the civil society and associations, thanks to a newfound energy after my raising this very simple question. When I started off without any plan, when I was asked that question after 2 months, because I wouldn't understand the language of the people of my counterparts, I understood that this question could have been turned into something more wide-ranging, trying to use the tools that I learned going to university, and I started to adopt a plan. Climate migrants are the invisibles today, are the ones that are perhaps more invisibles than others, if we could say so. Migrants could be us in the future, so our duty today is to enable such migrants not to grow. According to the IPCC, by 2050 in Europe there are going to be as many as 18 million climate migrants, and I'm not going to tell you how many by 2090, but you know, this is they're going to have repercussions to our country. Locally, we have already witnessed small migrations. We've already shown that we've seen that floods that are ever more frequent led many populations to rethink about their lives and the technology they use. So what do you think we could do to give a name to those who are invisible? So I think that we should ask them call them by their names, and then look at existing models that should be weighed based on the present-day requirements. As we saw with education and health, and by the way, I thank you for your kind invitation, I believe that there could be a clear message that is truly universal and there could be a cross-link among all the different subjects that we have been dealing with today.
curiosity, knowledge, and boldness. We started off talking about the fear of the future, but now I think that we should conclude our morning thinking about being bold when looking at the future. So we conclude with something beautiful. The last person who will join us was the last time she was in Venice. She was arrested by the police because she was participating in a protest with a huge musical instrument with bassos. So,
la prima volta l'ho intervistata un paio di anni fa alla scuola Holden. È stato un momento emozionante. Avevo letto da qualche parte della sua storia.
So the first time I met her, it was at Scuola Holden in Turin, and it was quite unbelievable. And then she occupied the stage on the occasion of a show to protest against climate change with her double bass. So what happened when you were in Venice and you were arrested by the police because you were playing with your double bass? This is what happened in Venice.
Appena conclusa la COP28.
COP28 had just finished, and what we, the activists and scholars, had not happened. We are trying to implement and to make the green transition happen. This is a protest by Extinction Rebellion, the climate movement I belong to. We took the idea of the Titanic, sinking Titanic, so I was dressed like a musician on board of the Titanic, and I was playing, and other activists were putting a banner on the bridge, and then we had put fluorescent in the Grand Canal, because it is used to find routes by underground, and it became so green because there are many pollutants. So we were arrested for 2 days, and we could not get in touch with our parents' lawyers, but it was really fun because they arrested also tourists. It was not the first time. The first time it happened in France, yes, in Strasbourg. And in Strasbourg, my story started in Strasbourg, actually. I was a member of the world of classical music for 7 years. I was in love with the double bass, and I have chosen the double bass because it allowed me to stand, and this was essential to move. You cannot stand still. No, I can't. It was a real love. It was true love. And studying, I went to China. This is Nanning, and I was with a Naples orchestra. And if that thing allows me to travel to the other end of the world, this is what I want to do, because we can create a classical work which should be magnificent, but we could do that only by listening to each other. And I moved to Milan, and the story was not so beautiful. I am from Salso Maggiore Terme, next to Parma, and double bass players were not so numerous, and in Milan there were 30
players, so there were one or two positions every now and then. So one day I hoped that one of my dearest friends would have made a mistake so that I could replace her. So I realized this is not what I want to be. So I was really challenged. I was at home, I was back at home, and I found a garden, and you cultivate tomatoes in Milan. This is what my father told me. But one day I saw a poster of a climate movement, Fridays for Future. I couldn't understand how we could save climate by protesting, and that poster said that the protest would have taken place before the Scala, and so I said, let's give an opportunity for people who fight for climate. So I went there and my life changed, and my life changed because I discovered what climate crisis is and what my life would be in the future. I discovered how much money is invested, billions are invested for fossil fuels and weapons. And I said, well, I'm wasting my time playing music. I need to be an activist. This is what I said. So I left and went to Strasbourg. So you go to protest with your double bass? No, not in Strasbourg. I thought that music was meant wasting time. I was really angry. So I was among the high-risk activists. We were on canoes and we were diverse so that police could follow us and flash mobs could take place in front of the European Parliament.
E ovviamente la polizia è arrivata in tempo zero.
The police arrived very quickly.
Ci stava portando via in questura.
They blocked us. They wanted to identify not only us, the activists, but also the people who had rented the canoes to us. So during 20 minutes, it was marvelous because the police was screaming at us in French. The sun was shining, and I was firmly convinced of what I was doing, why I was there, and why I couldn't. And since I couldn't communicate, I started singing. So you started singing on the canoe? Yes, I did. And the policeman started to whisper "Bella ciao" with me,
e alla fine ci ha lasciati andare.
And he was whistling, and then he let us go. You have a nice voice. Let's pretend that nothing has happened. You go. So 20 minutes of music together. So I have also studied opera singing, and so this is what I did on the canoe. So it was really crazy. So I learned that if I was screaming, nobody would have listened to me. And I learned that people would have listened to me if I was singing. And so I started. And so I came back to Italy and wrote Detonazione, Detonation, my show, in order to raise awareness, so that people would understand that climate crisis is essential, and it would not continue gaining billions of euros and make greenwashing. Our political families are actively choosing not to do anything. The first time we spoke 1 hour, we do not have enough time, but before you play your new piece, which you have written with Alex Braga, why there is no passion among people, and young people are not so much interested. Well, movements have some kind of duration. Thank you, Alex. Alex is also a producer of.
Ora abbiamo bisogno di altre forme di attivismo. Io sono molto felice di aver partecipato settimana scorsa alla primavera rumorosa.
I was very happy to participate with Extinction Rebellion in the Noisy Spring. 600 activists protested during a week before the Ministry for Aeronautics with the unicorn which has been built here in Venice. We have occupied one of Leonardo headquarters, asking them to stop the Palestinian genocide, stopping the sale of weapons to Israel. And then we went to before the Ministry for Justice, asking not to adopt, to implement the new decree which will limit our rights. The social parties being broken, and civil disobedience can be the right solution. So why haven't we won this battle for climate? Maybe because we are too scared, because we have looked elsewhere at Holden. I have learned that telling dystopic stories has frozen us. Climate crisis is also an imagination crisis. Not seeing the future before us, not seeing the ecological transition, the city freed from the chains of sin, vegetal diets, a system in which we buy and share instead of combating and existing is something that we can do when we go out today. We need to show that. So it's up to you now.
Di che parla la tua canzone?
What is your song about? We have a tendency to self-sabotage. So the title is Autosabotarci, self-sabotage.
Possiamo levare il tavolino alle sedie?
Can we remove the table, please? I can take care. No, it's not possible. Sorry.
Lasciate, prova, 1, 2, 3, sa. Brutti cresciuti abbiamo trasformato il fuoco in cultura, ora diventa la steppa bruciata della nostra incoscienza. Cercando vita là fuori, dimenticandoci di questo cielo, un accanito bisogno di stelle, mentre in casa si muore. Ci piace autosabotarci, 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 ci piace autosabotarci. Alla terra non serviamo noi per salvarsi, ma l'umanità che rischia di schiantarsi. Guarda negli occhi tuo figlio, digli un po' quello che stai facendo, mentre in salotto ti fumi il futuro e ti giri dall'altra parte. Dai, guardare ancora, augura il meglio, mentre la notte poi rimani sveglio e ti spegni la sigaretta sulla coscienza sporca. Autosabotarci, ci piace 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 autosabotarci. Alla terra non serviamo noi per salvarsi, ma l'umanità che solo ce la fa, tra campi arsi e mare acido ce la fa, su un pianeta che ormai pare Marte, i palazzi su scheletri e le città morte. Ora conta il suo denaro, ma chi, a chi? Ora mostra i dati raccolti, ma chi, a chi? Rimasero lui il suo potere e la sua I, a chiedersi insieme che cazzo ci faccio qui? Autosabotarsi, autosabotarsi, autosabotarsi. Autosabotarsi, mi piace autosabotarci, ci piace autosabotarci, gli piace autosabotarci, ti piace autosabotarci, mi piace autosabotarci, ti piace autosabotarci, alla terra non serviamo noi per salvarci, ma è l'umanità che rischia di schiantarsi. Grazie.
Irene, Angelica, Florian, Claudio, Eugenio, Chiara, Bianca, tutti sul palco.
Thank
Enrico,
you everybody, thank you
Ecosistema Futuro.
all the young people
Ragazzi,
who are
grazie, è
part
stato
of
per me
Ecosistema
un onore,
Futuro.
un piacere,
Please come
un'emozione grande
here.
condividere il
It
palco
was a
con voi, con le vostre
great
storie.
honor to
Torniamo a
share
casa
your
tutti
stories
un po' più ricchi e felici.
and share
Bocca
the
al lupo.
stage with you.
Se
We
sappiamo
go
che non ci
back
vedremo
home
di vista.
richer.
Grazie.
Thank you and good luck.
Più di
Thank you.
200.000 persone
More
hanno
than
seguito lo streaming.
200,000 people
200.000.
have
Tanta
joined
roba.
the
Grazie,
streaming.
buona giornata.
200,000 people. Unbelievable. Thank you.